forces out there. These are the ones that I think are going to be most impactful, and these are the ones that I'm going to monitor, right? Once I've chosen these forces, it would then be prudent of me to go out and source more information about these sources. I want to do some more research. I want to find out as much as I can about these. It's going to help me in terms of being able to, again, respond, being able to prepare, being able to fully effect change or react to what these forces may bring to me. And then once I've identified information sources, I conduct initial baseline assessment, essentially, you know, where I am and what's going on at this present moment. I also want to do look at trends and the pace of change. Okay, what's the what is likely to occur with this force? What is likely to occur with this trend in the industry? For example, if I'm looking out right now and I'm in the publishing industry, I should say, I should have recognized that more and more people are moving away to physical hard textbooks and more into these e-textbooks, more of an online format, flexibility, and that is a distinct force that has the possibility of having a major impact on my industry and on my business. And so I not only want to recognize this trend, but I potentially want to project this trend. How many people or how many users of e-textbooks will there likely be in the next 10 years? And what is that rate of change? How quickly are people going to move? It's going to therefore give me an idea of what I need to do in order to be successful into the future. And then estimate the impact of that trend on the organization. If I am predominantly, go back with the publisher example, if I'm predominantly all about physical books, I have no ebooks whatsoever, then this trend, if it continues on the path that I've projected, is likely to have a serious impact on me negatively. But if I'm a publisher that has made strides to move away from physical books and more into ebooks, then this is going to again have an impact on me. And the impact is probably going to be softened towards with respect to negativity, because I've already made preparations, but I'm also going to see potentially a positive response as we move more into e-textbooks. And then what strategic decisions in response to the trends I should make. Hey, if this is occurring and I'm the manager, I'm the head guy at the publishing house, it again would be prudent of me to recognize this trend and respond to it in terms of my strategy. I'm going to shift resources away from the product that is losing value in the eye of the consumer and move production towards the product or services that are gaining value. That's a strategic decision, realignment of resources, a shift in our business model. Many times you hear Apple did the same thing. Apple looked at the trend in the industry and recognized that people were moving away from traditional PCs and notebooks and more into portable smart applications and electronics. And so they shifted resources, they shifted their entire business model to some extent to focus more on that production. And then once we've done that, what decision makers receive environmental reports? Well, again, it's very, very important that we ensure that the right people are getting the right information in the organization. If they aren't, then we might have a basic inefficiency in terms of knowledge management. So just look at this and try to make sense of this kind of the way that I've did. Instead of trying to learn and cram, these, how many steps, I don't know, 9 or whatever, just kind of go through and say, hey, if I was doing this, how would I go about? What will be the process? And you see it'll make intuitive sense. We said before there were 3 main levels. There are 3 main types of environmental forces that we consider. The first type is these general macro forces. And I gave you a little bit of a, I think it's called an acronym, PEST, and it kind of encapsulates all, if you will, the macro forces that we consider. It's the political, legal, which is the P, the economic, the E, the social, cultural, the S, and the technological, the T. Your textbook has wonderful development of each of one of these areas. So I would not in any way try to go about replicating that. So I would say, go in again, do some research, read about these are our general forces. Remember that they reside traditionally at the regional, national, even international level. These are general forces, so they occur, or they exist more at these larger levels, or sorry, these higher levels I should say, rather than at the firm or the industry level. They're homogeneous for all organizations operating in the environment. I use the example in my traditional strategy class. If I'm living in Shreveport, Bossier, and it rains today in my area, in my neighborhood, then it's probably going, it's going to rain on my house. However, the way that I respond to that rain may change. For example, if I have a new roof on my house, chances of it leaking are going to be nil. If I have an old house and I've never changed a roof, chances of it leaking is going to be high. So my response to the environmental force may be different. But once I am within that environment, I am going to have to face the force just like anybody else in the environment. The healthcare reform is coming, and it's going to affect all entities within the United States of America. How they respond to that force is going to be different, but the force itself is homogeneous. Remember that general forces often affect the firm indirectly, but in some industries can have a more direct effect. Again, when we teach traditional strategy, general forces are taught as these macro forces whose influence is channeled through the micro forces, those porter forces that we're going to talk about. But especially in certain industries, especially like healthcare industries, some of those macro forces can have a more direct effect. The government intervention, for example, is not necessarily channeled through direct micro forces alone, but has a serious direct impact on the firm and the industry. So generally, those general forces are indirect. Their influence, I should say. But in some industries like healthcare, these forces can have also a direct intervention into the firm and organization and the industry. These micro forces we've already alluded to. What are they? They're markets and customers. Markets and customers, that's chapter, I believe chapter 4. Markets and it's all about segmentation. There's a wonderful, again, your text does a good job of discussing segmentation, but I'll just quickly say segmentation can be based on product type, customer type, and geographic location. Why do we segment? Why? Well, because few, if any, entities in any market or in any industry can serve the entire market. So it would be prudent for any firm, any organization, to try to identify those areas or those segments in the market that the organization is best at serving, and therefore go after that or frame its business strategy, business model with respect to trying to serve that market segment. If I attempt to serve too many market segments, what may occur is a lack of resources, a lack of effectiveness, a lack of efficiency. Again, if I segment it, if I'm able to target and focus my energies on those people that I can serve best, I would probably most likely have a better, more effective and efficient market management. I would be able to create better value, be able to have more customer retention, and also be able to utilize my resources more effectively and efficiently, not wasting anything, doing the right thing and doing things right. Whole markets, remember, may seem unprofitable, but profitable niches may exist. That's another benefit of segmentation. If you look at the airline industry right now, if you did an environmental or an industry analysis on the entire airline industry, you may at the end of it come up with a decision that no, this industry is not for me, not very attractive. It doesn't look like there's any kind of profitability within this industry. However, Southwest, by identifying a very limited segment, the budget traveler, who only wants to fly in these certain areas and using these smaller hubs, they have actually created a level of profitability that is somewhat unmatched by others in the industry. Why? Because while the industry itself might not be, the entire industry might not be profitable, there might be segments within the industry that are. One can argue in the automobile industry. The automobile industry does not look like it's very attractive right now. You don't see companies being able to sell their automobiles at the price they want to. But segments such as hybrids have the potential to be very, very profitable, because those segments are being protected from some of the environmental forces that the rest of the industry are being faced with. 3D televisions potentially would have, again, that ability to be profitable, even in a very saturated, even in a very competitive industry or marketplace. Point to note, remember in the healthcare industry, I should say industry there, customers are often organizations and entities other than the end user. So again, in traditional strategy, we often talk about the consumer as the end user. In healthcare, it doesn't have to be the end user. I mean, customers, third-party insurance, physicians, different channel members that are customers before it even gets to the final end user. So remember that organizations are big or huge customers when we talk about healthcare. Your text again goes over that, so I would not spend any more time on that. We did markets and customers. Chapter 5, I believe, talks about the industry and the competition, understanding important stakeholders in their interactions. Industry analysis is very, very key to do an external analysis, because organizations normally operate in an industry. The text has your definition of an industry, but it's a group of related firms that oftentimes serve the same basic need with the same basic types of services. That's kind of the definition, a loose definition of industry. It may change. You may also look at your text, very good definition. And the way that, a traditional way that we do an industry analysis is by looking at Porter's 5 forces. Porter's 5 forces assesses the attractiveness of an industry based on the extent of opportunities and threats. What are opportunities? They're avenues to increase the organization's success. What are threats? They're hindrances or potential hindrances to the organization's ability to realize success. So opportunities allow organizations that chance to be more successful. Threats, they are these obstacles to success. And again, in an organization, especially if we're looking at profitability, the way that we increase our success is either by increasing revenue or by decreasing costs, and vice versa with threats. Threats are going to either decrease our revenue and or increase our cost. And that's for for-profit organizations. Porter's 5 forces: the risk of entry by potential competitors. Sometimes you hear students say barriers to entry. Well, barriers to entry are what firms create in order to reduce the risk of entry by potential competitors. All right, but the force itself is risk of entry. If an industry is very, very easy to get into, then that risk of entry is going to be high. Firms that already, organizations that already exist in the industry, do not want other people, firms, organizations to enter the industry. Why? Because the more firms that enter the industry, the more saturated the market becomes, and the more competitive the market becomes. Attractiveness of an industry is all based upon limiting rivalry, because that fifth force, rivalry intensity, is contingent on those 4 forces before: risk of entry by potential competitors, risk of substitution, bargaining power buyers, and bargaining power of suppliers. And so if I can lower the risk of entry, what it says is that I will have fewer competitors in my industry. With fewer competitors in my industry, I will have less rivalry intensity. I don't want rivalry intensity as a firm or organization. Why? Because competition creates a problem, or can create a problem for me. I will have to spend more resources perhaps to make less in terms of my revenue, because now other firms or other organizations are going to take some of my customers away from me, and in order for me to keep the ones I have and even attract others, I'm going to have to spend more. And so firms don't necessarily like rivalry intensity. So the risk of entry by potential competitors